horse died 2 miles back. Compound fracture. Right foreleg snapped clean through where ice had hidden beneath fresh snow. Cole Hartley stood over the gelding's body, the wind cutting through his coat like it wasn't there. 12 years old, that horse. Carried him through Colorado, New Mexico, places that didn't matter anymore because everywhere was the same when you were running from yourself. He checked the revolver out of habit. Colt 45, 6 chambers loaded, 24 rounds spare in his belt. The Winchester leaned against the dead horse, 14 cartridges remaining. Bowie knife on his hip, 8 inches of steel he'd carried since the war. Fire steel, coffee tin, 2 days of hardtack that tasted like sadness and regret. Everything a man needed to keep moving. Everything except a reason to. December 1875. Montana Territory. Temperature somewhere below zero, the kind of cold that made your lungs burn with every breath. Cole looked down at Cedar Falls spread out in the valley below. Another town. Another place full of people who would look right through him because that's what people did when they saw a ghost pretending to be a man. The barometric pressure was dropping. He could feel it in his bones, in the old bullet wound on his shoulder that ached when storms were coming. 6 hours, maybe 8 before the blizzard hit. Smart thing would be to find shelter. Smart thing would be to care whether he froze to death on this ridge. He pulled out the tin photograph instead. Catherine, Daniel, Colorado, spring of 1870. Back when the world still had color in it. Back when Cole Hartley was someone worth being. He studied their faces for exactly 10 seconds, the way he did every morning. Then he put it away and started walking. The town looked like every other frontier settlement. Wood buildings, stone church, general store. A well in the center of the square, stone construction, probably 40 feet deep. Cole raised the brass spyglass to his eye. Confederate issue, something he'd carried since Shiloh. The lens was scratched but functional. He scanned the square. Early morning, few people moving. Wood smoke rising from chimneys. Then he saw her. Small figure by the well. Too small. Child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, struggling with a water bucket that was bigger than she could handle. Cole watched as she tried to lift it, watched her small hands slip on the frozen rope, watched physics in winter and a child's desperation collide in the worst possible way. The bucket fell first. It shattered against the stones with a sound that carried up the ridge. Then the child fell. Hard. Her knees hit frozen cobblestones and Cole saw blood, bright red against white snow. She tried to stand, couldn't. Tried again. Failed. Collapsed on her side, one small hand reaching out toward nothing. And Cedar Falls, population 200 souls, did exactly nothing. Through the spyglass, Cole watched a woman at a second-story window. Gray hair, widow's dress. She was looking right at the child. Their eyes met. The woman's hand moved to the curtain. She closed it. A man walked past, 50 years old, clean clothes, heading toward the general store. He looked down at the child, saw the blood, saw the tears, adjusted his collar and kept walking. Entered the store, closed the door behind him. The church bells began to ring. 8 o'clock. A reverend appeared on the church steps, 65 if he was a day. He saw the child, crossed himself, went back inside. 3 more people passed within 20 feet. Butcher, school teacher, farmer in for supplies. All saw, all kept walking, all found something more important than a child bleeding in their town square. The girl whispered something Cole couldn't hear from the ridge. Her lips moved. Please, someone, anyone. But the square was emptying now, people disappearing into buildings like roaches when you lit a lamp. Something cracked inside Cole's chest. Something he thought had died with Catherine and Daniel. Something that felt uncomfortably like rage. He didn't decide to run, his legs just started moving. The ridge was steep, 200 vertical feet at a 35-degree angle. Ice everywhere. Cole's boots hit a patch and he went down, sliding 15 feet before slamming into a boulder hard enough to knock the wind out. He got up, kept running. Rocks, snow, scrub brush that tore at his coat. He fell twice more, caught himself both times, kept going. His breath came in sharp gasps that burned his lungs. The saddlebag banged against his back. He left them. Too heavy. Kept the rifle. Kept the revolver. kept running toward a child he didn't know for reasons he couldn't name. His boots hit the main street cobblestones and someone yelled, "Hey, stranger!" Cole didn't hear, didn't care. He was running full speed now, people jumping aside, someone cursing. What in Sam Hill? None of it mattered. Only the child mattered. Only reaching her before hypothermia finished what indifference had started. He dropped to his knees beside her. The ice cut through his pants, sharp and cold. His hands found her shoulders, gentle as he could manage with hands that shook from running. "Little miss, can you hear me?" Her eyes opened, unfocused, pupils dilated, shock setting in, skin pale, lips turning blue, breathing too shallow, core temperature dropping fast. "Papa?" The word hit him like a bullet to the chest. "No, miss, not your papa, but I'm going to help you." He shrugged out of his coat, wrapped it around her small frame. She couldn't weigh more than 50 pounds. Too light, way too light. He lifted her, and she barely registered as weight in his arms. Cole stood, turned, faced the town. 20 people had gathered now, watching, judging, doing nothing. Just like they'd done nothing when she fell. Just like they'd do nothing tomorrow when another child needed help. "Where's her family?" His voice cut through the cold morning air like a blade. Silence answered. "This child needs help. Where is her family?" An old man stepped forward, 72, maybe 75, tobacco juice staining his gray beard. He spat brown onto white snow and shook his head. "You don't want no part of that, stranger. Whole families cursed. Father died at this well last winter. Mother's dying of consumption now. Girls marked. Best leave her where you found her and ride on." Cole stared at him. At this old man who'd probably fought in the war, probably knew what honor meant once upon a time, probably told himself he was a good person while children froze to death in his town square. Cursed. The word came out flat, not a question. A statement of fact about how low humanity could sink when fear replaced conscience. Cole stepped forward. The old man stepped back. "A child is bleeding in your street. She's freezing to death, and you call it cursed." His voice dropped lower, colder than the wind, colder than the snow. "I spent 20 years wearing a badge, tracked killers from Texas to Colorado. You know what I learned?" Pause. Let them think about it. Let them feel the weight of their own cowardice. Evil wins when good men do nothing, and right now I'm looking at a town full of good men doing nothing. The child stirred in his arms. Her small hand gripped his shirt, holding on with surprising strength for someone so weak. "Don't leave. Everyone leaves." Cole looked down at her, at brown eyes that had seen too much, at a face that should have been playing with tools instead of begging strangers not to abandon her. "I ain't leaving." He looked back at the crowd, scanned faces. The woman at the window wouldn't meet his eyes. The man from the store found the ground fascinating. The Reverend studied his Bible like it held answers he'd somehow missed every other time he'd read it. Not evil people, just cowards, which might be worse. "Where does she live?" Silence stretched. Then a young woman spoke. 25, school teacher by the look of her, shame written all over her face. "The White House past the church, with the broken fence." She looked down. "I should have. I'm sorry." Cole nodded once. "You should have." He walked away, carried the child toward the church past it, looking for a white house with a broken fence. Behind him, Cedar Falls returned to its morning routine, pretending nothing had happened, pretending they hadn't just failed every test that mattered. The Morgan farm came into view, and Cole's professional eye cataloged everything wrong with it. Fence rails broken in 6 places, posts rotted at the base, no maintenance for 18 months minimum. The barn door hung on one hinge, roof sagging under snow load, fields unplowed, weeds frozen in place. One full growing season lost, maybe 2, but smoke rose from the chimney. Someone was alive inside. The windows were intact. The woodpile was low, maybe 3 days left. No livestock visible. No tracks except human, light, probably female. This was a family in final collapse. This was what happened when the world took everything and people like Cedar Falls did nothing. Cole was 30 feet from the porch when the door flew open. The woman who stepped out held a Remington Model 1874 double-barrel shotgun, both hammers cocked, both barrels loaded, stock tight against her shoulder. Finger on the trigger, stance professional. This woman knew guns. Put her down. Her voice didn't waver. Eyes fever bright but focused. Dark hair escaping from a loose braid. Thin, too thin, consumption eating her from the inside out. But the shotgun never wavered. Put my daughter down and step away, or I swear to God I'll drop you where you stand. Cole froze. At 30 feet with double-aught buckshot, both barrels would kill him instantly. She was weak from illness, but her stance was solid. Finger discipline good. She meant every word. He knelt slowly, set the child on the porch with gentle hands, stood, raised his hands, palms open, shoulder height. No sudden moves. Respect the weapon. Respect the woman holding it. Wait back. One word, but it demanded truth. Cole met her eyes. Fever burned there, fear, desperation, but also strength, the kind that came from losing everything and refusing to break. She fell at the well, ma'am. I saw from the ridge. Whole town watched. Nobody moved. So I did. The shotgun didn't lower. You just happened to be passing through? Yes, ma'am. And you just happened to care about a child you never met? I did. Her eyes narrowed, studying him, looking for the low, looking for the trap, looking for whatever made men hurt children, because she'd learned that lesson the hard way. Cole took a breath. This next part would hurt. It always did. I had a son once, Daniel. He was 6 when diphtheria took him. Spring of 1870. Colorado. His voice roughened. 5 years, but the words still cut. Took my wife, Catherine, too. The shotgun wavered, just slightly, but Cole kept talking because she deserved the whole truth. I was 300 yards away when they died, chasing a wanted man named Silas Crane. By the time I got home, neighbors had already buried them. Said nobody would touch Fever dead. Pause. Let her see the pain. Let her see the guilt that had driven him across 3 territories looking for absolution he'd never find. I dug them up myself, reburied them proper on the hill where we used to have picnics. He looked at the child on the porch, at her small frame wrapped in his too large coat. So when I saw your girl fall, when I saw those people walk past like she wasn't even there, Cole met the mother's eyes again. I couldn't do nothing, not again, not ever again. 30 seconds of silence, wind through broken fence, snow beginning to fall again. Mother and daughter and stranger in a tableau of decisions that would change all their lives. The shotgun lowered. Get her inside. The woman's voice cracked. Broke. Please, I can't lift her anymore. The cabin's interior was warm, sparse, but warm. A fire burned low in the stone fireplace, oak logs because this woman knew good hardwood when she had it. The main room measured maybe 20 by 20 feet, plank floor well made, showing the craftsmanship of someone who'd cared about doing things right. Cole carried the child to a cot in the corner. Set her down gently, his hands checked for injuries with the efficiency of someone who'd done battlefield medicine. The knee wound was 2 inches long, debris in it, needed cleaning and stitches. Core temperature dangerously low, hypothermia stage 2. The shivering had stopped, which was bad. Body shutting down to preserve vital organs. She needs warming. Gradually, too fast will put her in shock. The mother knelt beside the cot. Her movement cost her. Cole could see it in how she braced herself, in how her breath caught. Advanced consumption. Months left, maybe weeks. But she smoothed her daughter's hair with infinite gentleness. The child's eyes fluttered open. Mama, I dropped the water. I'm sorry. Hush, baby. Don't worry about water. But you need it, for the medicine. I said hush. The mother's voice broke. She pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead, holding there like she could transfer life itself through that contact. When she pulled back, tears tracked down her gaunt cheeks. Then the child saw the cookies on the table. Her whole face transformed. Pain forgotten. Fear forgotten. Pure childish joy breaking through trauma like sun through storm clouds. Mama, you made gingerbread men. Despite everything, the mother smiled. She looked at Cole. I don't know your name. Cole Hartley. After Mr. Hartley leaves, you can have one. Cole started to rise, started to back toward the door. This was a family, mother and daughter. He was the intruder here, the stranger who'd done one decent thing and should now disappear back into the snow where he belonged. Wait! The child's voice stopped him. He turned. She was studying him with an intensity that was unnerving from an 8-year-old, like she could see through skin and bone into whatever passed for his soul these days. You have sad eyes. Lily Morgan, that's rude. No, Mama, it's like Grandma Nell said. Some people show their insides on their outsides. The child pointed at him with one small finger. Mean people have mean eyes even when they smile nice. But Mr. Hartley, he has sad eyes, but kind eyes too, like Papa had. The mother's hand flew to her mouth. Tears came sudden and fierce. She turned away, shoulders shaking with grief she'd been holding back because her daughter needed her strong. Cole stood frozen, uncomfortable with emotions, with kindness, with being seen by a child who shouldn't be that perceptive. I should go. Storm's coming. The mother had composed herself, wiped her eyes, faced him with that same strength that had held the shotgun steady. You can see it out there, getting darker. You won't make it back to town. Pause. Decision being weighed, trust being measured against desperate need. You can stay the night, by the fire, just until storm passes. Cole opened his mouth to refuse, pride and shame warring in his chest. He didn't deserve kindness, didn't deserve a warm fire and shelter. He'd failed his family. Let them die. What right did he have to comfort? I'm not asking for me. The mother's voice was firm now. Command, not request. I'm asking for her. If you leave and something happens, if I can't. She looked at her daughter, at Lily Morgan, 8 years old with sad eyes of her own. I need to know someone checked on her. Cole understood. This woman was dying. Knew it, accepted it, but couldn't bear the thought of her daughter alone with no one to care. So she was asking a stranger to promise what her town wouldn't. He nodded once. I'll stay. Night fell with the storm. Wind rattled shutters. Snow piled against the walls. The fire burned low and Cole added wood, careful to stay quiet. Mother and daughter slept together on the cot, wrapped in blankets, holding each other like lifelines. Cole sat by the fire with his revolver in reach. Old habits from 20 years of law work. Check the cylinder. 6 rounds, scan the windows, assess exits. Stay alert because the world was full of men who'd hurt women and children, and the only thing standing between them and violence was other men willing to stop them. Midnight came. The storm reached full fury outside. Cole was adding another log when he heard it. Floorboard creak. His hand found the revolver grip. Turned slow. Ready for anything. Lily Morgan stood in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket, 3 times too big for her small frame. Bad dream? She shook her head, padded across the floor with the unself-conscious confidence of children, sat by the hearth without asking permission, pulling the blanket tight around her shoulders. I don't sleep much, not since Papa. Cole knew that rhythm, the pause where you couldn't say the rest, couldn't say died, couldn't make it real with words. I know something about not sleeping, about the since part. They sat in silence, fire crackling, wind howling. 2 people who'd lost too much, finding something like companionship in shared insomnia. What were their names? Your wife and son. Most people didn't ask. Most people changed the subject, uncomfortable with grief that belonged to someone else. But this child asked like it mattered, like remembering the dead was important work. Catherine and Daniel, Will, we called him. Was he brave? Bravest boy I ever knew. Lily pulled the blanket tighter. I'm 8. Mama says I'm brave too, but I don't feel brave. I feel scared all the time. Cole leaned forward, met her eyes in the firelight. Being scared and being brave ain't opposites. Brave people are just scared people who do hard things anyway. She considered this, nodded slowly like he'd confirmed something she'd suspected. Papa said something like that too. Your papa was right. Lily reached inside her blanket, drew out a small leather journal, worn at the edges, stained with use. She held it like something precious. Holy. Papa gave me this before. She couldn't finish, didn't need to. Cole understood about the befores, about how life divided itself into everything that came prior and everything that came after. She opened the journal carefully. The first 20 pages were filled with drawings, skilled work, Montana landscapes rendered with an artist's eye, botanical sketches precise enough for scientific study, the farm buildings from multiple angles, a woman's portrait done with such loving detail that Cole knew immediately this was Lily's mother, before the consumption, before the wassail, when there was still light in her eyes. Then the handwriting changed. The lines became simpler, a child's interpretation of the world. Lily's attempts to learn what her father had taught, the progression visible across pages, getting better, learning, father and daughter bonding through art. Cole turned another page and froze. The drawing was dated 3 days ago. It showed a man with sad eyes carrying a child through snow. The detail was remarkable for a child's work. The man's face, the child's small form, the snow falling around them. It was the scene from this morning, exactly. Lily, when did you draw this? 3 days ago, I dreamed it. Matter of fact, like this was normal. Like seeing the future in dreams was just another thing that happened. You mean you imagined? No. Her voice was firm, insistent. I dream things. Then they happen. Grandma Nell could too. Before she died. Mama says I'm making it up, but I'm not. Cole stared at the drawing, at his own face rendered in charcoal 3 days before he'd stood on that ridge. 3 days before he'd seen a child fall. 3 days before he'd run through snow to save her. He turned the page. Another drawing, a man with empty eyes standing in flames, buildings burning behind him. The man's face detailed, disturbing in its complete lack of warmth, like looking at something wearing human skin but hollow inside. Who's this? Don't know yet. Lily's voice was small now, scared. But he's coming. Cole's skin prickled. 20 years of tracking criminals had given him an instinct for danger, and this drawing radiated it. Whoever this man was, wherever he was, he meant death. Another page, another drawing, this one more detailed than the others. A man with expensive coat, polished boots, smile that didn't reach his eyes. Everything about him screamed money and power and the kind of evil that hid behind respectability. I saw this man the day Papa died. The words hung in the cold air. Cole looked at Lily, at this 8-year-old child who just handed him something more important than she knew. Tell me what happened. Everything. She took a breath, gathering courage, preparing to relive trauma that would have broken most adults. I was in the barn, playing where I wasn't supposed to. I heard voices at the well. Papa and that man, arguing about something. Papers, railroad. Papa kept saying no, getting louder. Her hands twisted in the blanket, small fingers white with tension. Then the man got really mad. Smile went away. Pause, the hardest part coming. And Papa fell into the well. Her voice was barely a whisper now, but her eyes met Cole's, steady, sure. Everyone says it was accident. Ground was icy. Papa slipped. The weight of what came next pressed down on the small cabin, on 2 people by a dying fire, on truth that had been buried for 18 months under lies and fear. But I saw the man's hands, Mr. Cole. I saw them push. Silence, complete and absolute. Just wind outside and heartbeats inside and the terrible weight of a child's testimony that no one had believed. Did you tell your mama? Tears now, finally, the dam breaking. She said I was having nightmares, said grief makes us see things that aren't real. But I know what I saw, I know. The tears came harder. Grief and frustration and 18 months of carrying truth alone because adults were too scared or too broken to believe her. Cole didn't think, just acted. Pulled the small, sobbing child into his arms and held her while she cried. It felt like holding Daniel. Like getting one chance to be the father he'd failed to be. Like maybe broken things could still do some good in the world. When the tears finally stopped, Cole pulled back, looked Lily in the eyes. I believe you. Her whole body went still. You do? I spent 20 years tracking criminals. I can tell the difference between a lie and truth. You ain't lying. No one else believed me. I believe you. Those 3 words, simple, true. The first time in 18 months that someone had validated what she knew in her bones, what she'd seen with her own eyes, what had haunted her every night since. Lily showed him more pages. Thomas Morgan's notes, names, dates, land transactions. A lawyer's careful documentation of crimes that touched everyone in Cedar Falls. Judge Marcus Blackwell at the center, Sheriff Morrison on the take, County Clerk Stevens falsifying records. 14 farmers lost their property in 2 years. A pattern of intimidation, arson, convenient accidents. This was courtroom quality evidence. Professional, thorough, the work of a man who knew how to build a case that would stand up to legal scrutiny. Your papa was investigating Judge Blackwell. Papa said he was stealing farms. A folded paper fell from the journal. Wanted poster, yellow with age. Cole unfolded it and his blood turned to ice. Wanted, Silas Crane, $5,000 reward. Murder, armed robbery, arson, presumed dead, Colorado, 1870. The photograph showed the same man from Lily's drawing. Empty eyes, forgettable face. The kind of man who could stand in a crowd and vanish the moment you looked away. Cole's hands shook, holding the poster. 2 years he'd chased this man, 2 years across 3 territories. 2 years that had kept him away from home when Catherine and Daniel needed him most. When the fever came and he was 300 yards away, tracking a ghost who should have been dead 5 years ago. He turned the poster over. Thomas Morgan's handwriting covered the back. Crane didn't die in Colorado. He's here. Calls himself Edmund Harper. Works for Blackwell as security consultant. This man will kill me if I'm not careful. If you find this and I'm dead, you know why. Thomas Morgan. The cabin felt too small suddenly. The walls pressing in. 5 years of running from guilt. 5 years of trying to escape the faces of his dead wife and son. 5 years of telling himself it didn't matter anymore because he was too broken to care. And the man who'd caused it all was alive, here, working for a corrupt judge, had murdered Thomas Morgan, was probably planning to murder Morgan's widow and daughter next. Mr. Cole, are you okay? Lily's voice pulled him back. He forced breath into lungs that didn't want to work, forced his hands to stop shaking, forced himself to look at this child who'd just given him the one thing he'd thought was gone forever. Purpose, Ipam. Yeah, I'm okay. He met her eyes. This man, Harper, he's the one you saw? She nodded. We're going to find him, Lily, and your papa's evidence, and we're going to make this right. Thunder outside, but not thunder. Hoofbeats, multiple horses approaching fast through the storm. Cole was at the window in an instant, revolver drawn. Is your mama awake? Lily nodded, eyes wide with fear. Get her, fast, we've got company. Dawn was breaking as a single rider crested the hill. Black stallion, quality horseflesh, worth $150 minimum. Expensive wool coat, Eastern tailoring. Polished boots that had never seen real work. Pleasant face, empty eyes. Cole stood on the porch, alone. Unarmed visibly, though, the revolver pressed against his spine under the coat. Relaxed stance hiding, coiled readiness because this man radiated danger the way the sun radiated light. The rider stopped at the gate, dismounted with practiced ease, extended his hand with a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. Good morning. Beautiful day despite the cold. Judge Marcus Blackwell. I don't believe we've met. Cole didn't shake. Cole Hartley. Hartley. The judge tested the name, tasted it, filed it away in whatever mental catalog he kept of people who might be threats. Can't say I recognize it. New to Cedar Falls? Passing through. And yet here you are on the Morgan farm. How charitable. His eyes flicked into the window where Lily watched. Empty eyes calculating, measuring, assessing threat levels and acceptable losses. Caring for widows and orphans. Admirable. Cole said nothing. Let silence do the work. Let the judge talk himself into revealing more than he meant to. I've made Mrs. Morgan a generous offer for this property. Isolated as it is, vulnerable. Winter is so dangerous. Technical details now. Setting up the threat with numbers that sounded reasonable. Fair market value given the condition would be $400. I'm offering 600. More than generous, I think. And if she doesn't sell? Blackwell's smile never wavered, but something cold moved behind those empty eyes. Offer expires end of month. After that, well, accidents happen. Women and children are so fragile. The frontier is unforgiving to those who don't understand how things work. Cole stepped forward, not aggressive, just closing distance, invading space just enough to make it clear he wasn't intimidated. I hear you clear, Judge. Do you? The mask slipped, just for a second, just long enough for Cole to see the monster underneath the pleasant exterior. This territory sorts men quickly, Mr. Hartley. Those who understand prosper. Those who don't. He shrugged. Well, the frontier has a way of dealing with fools. Blackwell remounted, gathered reins, looked back at the cabin one more time. Do give Mrs. Morgan my regards. Tell her my offer stands. For now. He rode away. Cole watched until he disappeared over the ridge. Then he went inside where Sarah Morgan stood with her shotgun and her daughter and her dying strength. He knows we're looking for Thomas's evidence. Then we'd better find it first. Cole looked at Lily, at this child who'd witnessed murder, who'd carried truth for 18 months with no one to believe her, who'd just handed him the identity of the man he'd spent 5 years trying to forget. Your papa wrote that the land will tell the truth. Any idea what that means? Lily's eyes lit up, that pure childish excitement breaking through fear like flowers through concrete. Papa used to tell me stories about frontier families hiding gold down wells during the war. He said wells keep secrets. Sarah Morgan went pale. I can't go near that well. Every time I see it, I see Thomas, the blood in the water. Cole put his hand on her shoulder. Gentle, the first real touch they'd shared. Feeling the bird-bone fragility of consumption eating her alive. You don't have to. Lily and I will check. Outside, the sun was rising over Montana. Inside, 3 people made plans to resurrect truth that powerful men had tried to bury. And in Cedar Falls, Judge Marcus Blackwell was realizing that sometimes the wrong stranger comes to town at exactly the right time. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And Cole Hartley, who'd spent 5 years running from everything that mattered, was about to remember what it meant to stand and fight. The well stood exactly where it had 18 months ago. Stone construction 40 feet deep, 4 feet across. The same stones where Thomas Morgan had clawed for purchase while water filled his lungs. The same well where his daughter had come for water every day since, carrying the weight of witness murder in her 8-year-old heart. Sarah Morgan watched from the window, could not come closer, could not face the place where her husband had died while their daughter watched and the town called it accident. Her hands gripped the window frame until her knuckles went white, consumption and grief making her shake. Cole approached the well with Lily beside him. The child's small hand found his, seeking comfort, seeking strength. He gave what he could. It wasn't much, but it was something. Papa's treasure hunts always had marks. Lily's voice was quiet, reverent, like she was in church instead of standing where her father died. Little crosses, tilted like this. She showed him with her fingers. An X, but slanted. Secret marks only someone looking would ever find. She circled the well slowly, running small fingers over cold stone, humming something under her breath. A melody Thomas had taught her probably. Something to make the searching less lonely, less terrible. Cole watched her work. This child who'd seen murder, who'd carried truth no one believed, who was brave enough to come back to the place that haunted her nightmares because finding evidence mattered more than fear. Here! Her voice rang out triumphant, pointing to a stone larger than the others. Cole knelt beside her, examined the spot. Barely visible, weathered by time and Montana winters, an X scratched into the mortar. He pulled his Bowie knife. 8 inches of steel that had seen the war, seen Colorado, seen 5 years of running. Now it would see truth exhumed from stone. The work was delicate, careful. Prying mortar that was old, poorly mixed, crumbling under pressure. 5 minutes of patient effort. The stone shifted. Cole worked the iron bar behind it for leverage. The stone pulled free, heavy in his hands. 40 pounds of granite in secrets. Behind it, wrapped in oilcloth and hope, lay a leather satchel. Cole's hands shook as he opened it. 20 years of law work, and nothing had ever felt as important as this moment. As this evidence gathered by a dead man who'd known they'd kill him for knowing too much. The satchel contained everything, ledgers with detailed accounting, every bribe documented. $500 to County Clerk Stevens, March 1874. $1,200 to Sheriff Morrison, July 1874. 14 properties seized, totaling 2,100 acres, stolen from families who'd worked that land for generations. Letters, dozens of them. Correspondence between Blackwell and someone named E. Harper. Plans for removing uncooperative farmers. Railroad route maps showing which properties needed clearing. Payment schedules for special work. The kind of work that left people dead and called it accident. Photographs, 6 of them. Blackwell with Kane/Harper outside the Territorial Bank. Shaking hands, smiling. 2 men who looked respectable, planning murder over whiskey and cigars. Forged deeds, 14 of them. Property transfers with signatures that didn't match. Thomas Morgan's legal analysis in the margins. Evidence that would stand up in any court. Evidence worth killing for. Evidence worth dying for. And one letter, dated the day before Thomas Morgan fell into this well. To whoever finds this, if you're reading it, I'm dead. Judge Marcus Blackwell and Silas Crane, calling himself Edmund Harper, have stolen 14 farms through fraud and murder. This satchel contains proof, but I've prepared for my death. I've sent complete copies to 47 newspapers nationwide and federal marshals in 12 cities. Instructions are clear. If Thomas Morgan dies under suspicious circumstances, open and publish immediately. The truth cannot be buried if everyone knows it. Protect my family, Thomas Morgan. Cole read it aloud, Lily listening with fierce pride. Sarah hearing from the window, tears streaming down her gaunt face. He sent copies before they killed him. Cole's voice was rough with admiration for a man he'd never met. A man who had thought 5 moves ahead, who'd known they'd come for him and made sure death wouldn't silence truth. Papa said always think 5 moves ahead. Lily's voice was small but proud. Like chess. Your papa was brilliant, little miss. The sound of horses killed the moment. Multiple riders, coming fast. Cole grabbed the satchel. Inside, now. 6 men crested the hill. Hired guns, farmers and thugs mixed together. The kind of men who'd do violence for money and call it work. Bull Morrison led them. Blackwell's enforcer, 45 years old and mean as a snake. The kind of mean that enjoyed hurting people. Cole assessed the situation with 20 years of tactical experience. 4 windows, front and back doors. Barricade the back with the table. Cole takes front windows. Sarah takes back. Lily goes to root cellar with the evidence. Papa taught me to shoot. I can help. Lily's voice was fierce, brave, but Cole knelt to her level, put his hands on her small shoulders. Bravest thing you can do is protect the evidence. Can you do that? She understood, nodded, took the satchel like it was holy, like it was her father's legacy made tangible. I can. Good girl, root cellar. Don't come out until I call. She disappeared down the cellar stairs. Cole checked his revolver. 30 rounds total. Sarah had 20 shotgun shells. Not much, but enough if they were smart, enough if they were lucky. The riders stopped at the gate. Bull Morrison's voice carried across the snow. We want them papers. Judge Blackwell's property. Cole positioned himself at the front window. Tell Blackwell, come get them himself. The shooting started. Bullets punched through windows. Glass shattered. Wood splintered. Cole returned fire with controlled precision. First shot took Bull in the shoulder. Deliberate wound. Second shot dropped a horse. Third caught another man in the leg. Professional shooting. Economical. Making every bullet count. Sarah's shotgun roared from the back window. Both barrels. Buckshot spread. One man went down screaming. She reloaded with shaking hands. Illness making her weak, but determination making her strong. She fired again. Return fire was heavy, unaimed, panicked. These weren't professional gunmen. They were farmers paid to do violence they weren't trained for. It made them dangerous in unpredictable ways. One man, Jake, broke through the back door, headed for the cellar. Cole heard it, turned, but trapped by crossfire. Couldn't move without exposing himself. Sarah saw, fired, missed. Jake kept coming. Cole made the decision in half a heartbeat, sprinted across open space, took a bullet graze along his ribs. Burning pain, kept moving. Tackled Jake at the cellar door. Close combat, brutal. No rules. Jake was bigger. 220 versus Cole's 185. But Cole had war experience. Had killed men with his hands when ammunition ran out at Shiloh. Knew where to hit, how to hurt. Jake drew a knife, 8-inch blade, came up toward Cole's throat. The cellar door burst open. Lily stood there with Thomas Morgan's Derringer. 41 caliber, 2-shot, her small hands steady, face set with determination that looked too old on someone so young. One shot, hit Jake's shoulder. Not a kill shot, but gave Cole the opening he needed. He disarmed Jake, knocked him unconscious with the revolver butt. Professional, efficient, done. The remaining attackers fled, 3 left, 2 wounded, 1 dead horse. They'd come for papers and found a fight they hadn't expected. Wouldn't make that mistake again. Cole stood, hand to his side where the bullet had grazed, blood seeping through his shirt. Not serious, but it hurt like hell. Lily dropped the gun, started shaking. Reality catching up with adrenaline. I shot someone. She started crying. Full child breakdown. Not the brave warrior, just a scared 8-year-old who'd hurt someone because it was the only choice. Cole knelt despite the pain, pulled her close, let her sob into his coat. You saved my life, Lily. That took real courage. But Papa said killing is wrong. Papa said only bad people kill. Your Papa was right. Killing is wrong. Cole held her tighter. But sometimes good people have to do wrong things to protect people they love. That doesn't make you bad. Makes you brave. She cried harder. Cole held her. Sarah joined them. 3 people in a shot-up cabin holding each other because they were alive and together, and that had to be enough. An hour later, another rider appeared, slumped in the saddle, horse exhausted, blood soaking through his coat. Sarah ran out before Cole could stop her. Ben! The old man slid from his horse. Sarah caught him, or tried to. He weighed 170, and she weighed 95, and consumption made her weak. Cole was there in seconds. Caught Ben, got him inside. Benjamin Morgan, 62, Thomas's uncle, Civil War veteran, Antietam, Gettysburg, survived battles that killed hundreds of thousands, now shot by hired thugs on a Montana road. Cole examined the wound, bullet in the shoulder, front entry, no exit, lodged against the scapula, going to have to dig it out, going to hurt. Been shot before. Ben's voice was weak but steady. Do what you need to. Cole heated the knife in the fire. Sarah brought whiskey. Lily hovered nearby, scared, wanting to help, not knowing how. I need you to get more blankets. Cole's voice was gentle, giving her a job, something useful. She nodded, left, paused outside the door where she could hear but not see. I know who you are. Ben's voice was barely a whisper. Cole Hartley, Texas Ranger. You hunted Silas Crane. I quit the Rangers. Why, Bry? Because I was chasing a crane when my family died. Cole worked the knife into the wound. Ben gasped, bit down on the leather strap Sarah had given him. Didn't scream, old soldier's discipline. Thomas's evidence. It's not just about Blackwell. Ben's voice was tight with pain. There's more. Crane, Harper, whatever he calls himself. He's planning something, mass arson. If Blackwell feels threatened, Crane burns Helena. Cole's hands froze. Burns what? The whole city, multiple buildings, simultaneous. Fire brigades can't handle it. Chaos, thousands dead, evidence destroyed. Blackwell escapes in confusion. The bullet came free. Cole dropped it in a tin cup, 44 caliber. He flushed the wound with whiskey. Ben's face went white, but he didn't make a sound. Sarah stitched the wound, 8 stitches, bandaged it with clean cloth. Ben finally allowed himself to breathe. They know you have the papers, Cole. Blackwell's desperate. They'll come in force. Tonight maybe, tomorrow at latest. Cole looked at Sarah, at Lily returning with blankets. At this family that wasn't his family, but felt like it anyway. At people who needed protecting when he'd spent 5 years running from every responsibility. Then we'd better leave now. Loading the wagon took an hour. Studebaker farm wagon, old but solid, 2 draft horses, strong, not fast, but they'd last. Provisions for 4 days. Hardtack, dried beef, coffee, water in canteens, blankets, medical supplies, ammunition. Cole did inventory. 24 rounds, 45 for him. 16 shotgun shells for Sarah. 40 rounds, 44 for Ben. Not much. Have to make every shot count. Ben insisted on coming despite the wound, despite the fever already setting in. Sarah protested. Ben overrode her. I didn't protect Thomas. I'll be damned if I don't protect you. Voice flat, final, no argument possible. Lily packed her things, journal, Derringer reloaded. Ragdoll her father had given her, something to hold when nightmares came. Thomas's pocket watch, ticking steady, proof that time moved forward even when it felt like standing still. They left at midnight, using darkness as cover. Sarah took one last look at the cabin, at everything she and Thomas had built, at dreams made tangible in wood and stone, at a life that was ending so another could begin. We're coming back? We're coming back, with Blackwell in chains. Cole's voice was certain, confident. He didn't feel either, but sometimes you had to pretend until pretending became real. The first day passed in tense silence. Montana mountains loomed on all sides. The trail was narrow, treacherous, ice everywhere. 120 miles to Helena, 4 days if they pushed, 3 if they were willing to risk the horses. Lily sat between Cole and Sarah on the wagon seat, fell asleep around noon, head on Cole's shoulder, small body trusting in a way that terrified him. Because trust meant responsibility. Responsibility meant failure. And Cole Hartley was very good at failing people who trusted him. Sarah noticed. She never does that, not since Thomas. She feels safe. Because of you. Their hands touched on the reins. Neither pulled away. The moment stretched. Fragile. Important. 2 broken people finding something that might be healing if they were brave enough to reach for it. Ben's voice came from the wagon bed, rough with pain and old soldier's humor. You 2 going to dance around this whole trip? Sarah blushed. Cole cleared his throat. Lily stirred, mumbled something in her sleep. Mama likes Mr. Cole. I dreamed you'd get married. Her voice was sleepy, innocent, devastating. Everyone froze, because prophetic dreams had a way of coming true, and marriage was terrifying in all the ways that mattered. Ben laughed, sharp bark that turned into a cough. Girl sees the future. Better listen. Evening came. They made camp in a hidden ravine. Defensive position. One approach. Good sightlines. Cole's tactical mind automatically cataloging strengths and weaknesses. Old habits from 20 years of staying alive in situations designed to kill him. Ben's wound was worse. Fever burning through him. Infection setting in despite the whiskey and clean bandages. Cole changed the dressing. Said nothing. But Sarah saw. Understood. They were racing. Time and time was winning. Sarah cooked dinner. Simple fare. Beans. Hardtack softened in bacon grease. Coffee strong enough to strip paint. Lily helped, humming that melody again. The one Thomas had taught her. Trying to bring normalcy to a situation that was anything but. After dinner, after Lily was asleep, Cole and Sarah sat by the dying fire, speaking in whispers, learning each other in the way people do when tomorrow might not come. What will you do after? Sarah's question hung in the cold air. After implied survival, implied future. Implied hope in a situation short on all 3. Don't know. Haven't thought past surviving. Maybe it's time to think about living instead. Cole looked at her. At this woman dying of consumption who still had more life in her than he'd had in 5 years. At strength that came from losing everything and refusing to break. Maybe. Midnight, Cole was on watch. Ben sleeping fitfully. Sarah and Lily wrapped in blankets, the fire down to embers. Then he heard it. Horses, multiple, coming fast. Everyone up, now. No time for gentleness, No time for comfort, just action. Get the wagon moving, stay ahead of pursuit. Hope, speed, and darkness were enough. They weren't. 4 riders, professional this time, moving in cavalry formation, changing lead horse to maintain speed. These were bounty hunters, men who killed for money and did it well. Cole whipped the horses, dangerous on the narrow trail, but death was certain if they were caught. The wagon lurched forward, picking up speed. Cliff on one side, rock wall on the other. No room for error. Bullets started flying. One hit rock near the wheel. Splinters flew. Sarah returned fire. Shotgun useless at this range, but the noise might make them cautious. Ben raised his rifle despite fever, despite pain, old soldier's muscle memory. Fired. One pursuer's horse went down, rider thrown. The wagon wheel hit a boulder. Loud crack. The rim split. Not broken, but damaged. Wagon slowed. Pursuers closing. 100 yards. 75. 50. Ben looked ahead. Saw the pass. Narrow bottleneck. Single wagon width. One man with a good rifle could hold that position against a dozen. He looked at Sarah. At the niece by marriage he loved like a daughter. At Lily sleeping, despite chaos because children could sleep through anything. At Cole Hartley, who'd stumbled into their lives 3 days ago and changed everything. Tell Lily I loved her like she was mine. Sarah understood. No, Ben, don't. Listen. His voice was firm, command voice, the one that had led men at Antietam. Those men catch you, they kill everyone. But one man with a good rifle can hold that pass. One man can buy you time. Ben, please. Don't waste your second chance, Cole. Ben's eyes locked on his, understanding, passing between men who'd both survived when others hadn't, who both carried guilt, who both knew about sacrifice. You got family now. Protect them. Ben climbed out of the moving wagon. Sarah screamed his name. Lily woke, started crying, but Ben was already gone. Moving to position in the rocks, rifle ready, one old soldier making one last stand. The wagon pulled away. Cole drove hard, didn't look back, couldn't look back. Because looking back meant seeing a man die, meant acknowledging the cost of survival. The sounds carried. First shot, Ben's rifle, crack, precise, professional. One rider down, return fire. Dozens of bullets, rock chips flying, second shot. Ben again, another hit. More return fire, heavier now, concentrated. Crack, crack, crack. Ben methodical, making every bullet count, teaching one final lesson about courage, about standing your ground, about the price good men pay so others can live. Then heavier fire, sustained, the kind that said overwhelming force against impossible odds. Then silence. Lily sobbed in Sarah's arms. Sarah cried silently, holding her daughter, grieving another loss, another man who'd stood between her family and evil, another grave they'd dig someday if they survived. Cole drove, jaw clenched, knuckles white, forcing himself forward because Ben hadn't died so they could stop. Hadn't bought 20 minutes with his life so Cole could waste them on grief. Hours later, Cole finally spoke, voice rough. Ben Morgan held that pass 20 minutes, killed 2 men, wounded a third, gave us time. Pause, finding words adequate to the moment. But more than that, he showed us what matters, not how long you live, but what you're willing to die for. Sarah pulled Lily closer. He was the best man I knew, after Thomas. Will he and Papa be together now? Lily's voice was so small, so hopeful, needing something to make the pain bearable. Yes, baby, yes they will. Day 3. They crested the ridge overlooking Helena. Should have been triumph, should have been relief. They'd made it. Survived pursuit, survived loss. Carried evidence that would bring down corrupt men and avenge the dead. But smoke rose from the city. Multiple columns, too many, too widespread. Not cooking fires, not chimney smoke. Building fires. Deliberate. Coordinated. Cole raised the spyglass. Saw chaos, saw flames, saw people running, saw the nightmare Ben had warned about made real. No, God, no. What is it? Sarah's voice tight with dread. Fires, multiple fires, Blackwell's not waiting. Cole lowered the spyglass, met her eyes. He's burning Helena now. The realization settled over them like snow. Blackwell knew they were coming, knew they had evidence, started the fires to destroy any copies that might exist in the city, created chaos to escape, didn't care that thousands might die, didn't care about anything except survival. We have to stop him. Lily's voice was fierce, determined. This child who'd survived too much and refused to break. We will. Cole gathered the reins. But we have to get to the governor before the whole city burns. They drove into hell, Helena burning, people screaming, running, carrying children, dragging possessions, fire brigades overwhelmed, hand pumps useless against this many fires, bucket brigades forming, citizens trying, failing, watching their city die. Cole navigated through chaos. Sarah held Lily, protected her from the worst of it, but Lily saw anyway. Curious child despite horror. Witnessing evil's final desperate act, learning what men would do when cornered. The courthouse rose ahead. Stone building, miraculously untouched. Guards at the main entrance, overwhelmed, turning people away. Too much chaos, too few hands. Cole remembered Thomas's journal, the map, service entrance, back of building, less guarded, their only chance. They circled the courthouse, found the alley, found the door, found Victor Kane waiting like he'd known they'd come, like he'd been patient, like he had all the time in the world and they had none. 10 men with rifles emerged from shadows. Professionals this time. No farmers, no thugs. Killers who did this for a living and did it well. Kane smiled. Pleasant, empty, terrifying. Mr. Hartley, I was wondering when you'd arrive. His voice was conversational. Like greeting old friends, like discussing weather, like he wasn't standing in a burning city surrounded by dying people. We have matters to discuss. Behind him, Helena burned. In front of him, 3 people who'd survived everything sat in a wagon with evidence that could destroy him. Between them, guns and death in the question of whether justice mattered more than survival. Cole's hand moved toward his revolver, slowly, carefully, knowing this moment would define everything that came after. The war wasn't over. The hardest part was just beginning. And in the smoke and chaos and desperate hope, the final battle for truth was about to be waged with bullets and blood, and the kind of courage that only came when you had nothing left to lose and everything worth saving. The alley behind the courthouse was narrow. Smoke from burning Helena hung thick in the air, turning afternoon into twilight. Distant screams echoed off stone walls. Victor Kane stood at the service entrance like he'd been planted there, like he'd grown from the cobblestones themselves. 10 men with rifles positioned on rooftops, in doorways, in shadows where light couldn't reach. Cole Hartley sat on the wagon seat with Sarah Morgan beside him and Lily Morgan between them. Behind them, in a wagon bed that still held Ben Morgan's blood on the wood, sat evidence that could hang Judge Marcus Blackwell and the man who called himself Edmund Harper. Evidence that Thomas Morgan had died gathering. Evidence that had cost Ben Morgan his life to protect. Kane smiled. Pleasant, empty. The kind of smile that never reached eyes that had nothing human left in them. You've led me on quite a chase, Mr. Hartley. His voice was conversational. Refined, like they were discussing business over brandy instead of standing in an alley while a city burned around them. Or should I say, former Texas Ranger Hartley. Cole's hand moved toward his revolver, stopped when rifle bolts clicked from 3 different directions. Kane's smile widened. Don't. My men have orders. You might get me. You're fast enough. I've studied your record. But Mrs. Morgan and little Lily wouldn't survive the next 5 seconds. Sarah's hand found the shotgun. Kane saw. Shook his head like a teacher, disappointed in a slow student. Mrs. Morgan, please, you're ill. Consumption, I believe. You can barely stand. Do you really think you can outdraw 10 professional shooters? He took a step closer, hands relaxed at his sides, confident, in control, master of this moment. The papers, that's all I want. Simple transaction. You give me what's mine. You walk away. Everyone lives. Everyone's happy. What's yours? Cole's voice was flat. giving nothing, taking everything. 20 years of interrogations teaching him when to talk and when to listen. Judge Blackwell paid for that evidence through his association with me, paid in opportunities, in protection, in looking the other way when necessary. So yes, mine. Kane's empty eyes moved to Sarah, calculated, measured, found weakness and pressed. Mrs. Morgan, I remember your husband, Thomas, wasn't it? Brave man, fought even as he fell, clawed at the wellstones while water filled his lungs. Called your name, called for little Lily, begged me to spare his family. Sarah gasped, physical pain in the sound. Kane fed on it, enjoyed it. This was why he did what he did, not for money, for the power to break people. He died slowly, Mrs. Morgan. Drowning is a terrible way to go. 3, maybe 4 minutes of pure terror. Knowing you're dying, unable to stop it, unable to save yourself, unable to save the family you're leaving behind. You're lying, Lily's voice cut through, small but fierce. Papa was brave. Papa wouldn't beg. Kane's eyes found her, really saw her for the first time. Recognition flickered across his face. The child who witnessed. How unfortunate you survived. I usually don't make mistakes like that. He took another step. Closer now. Close enough to see the freckles on Lily's nose. Close enough to smell the fear and determination mixed together. Tell me, little girl, do you still have nightmares about watching your papa die? Do you wake up screaming? Do you see his face under the water every time you close your eyes? Stop it. Cole's voice was cold, dangerous. The voice that had made wanted men surrender without a fight. The voice that said violence was coming and nothing would stop it. Let them go, Crane. It's me you want, you and me. We've been dancing around each other for 7 years. Let's finish it. Kane paused, considered. Something like interest flickered in those dead eyes. Ah, so you know, good. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. He spread his hands, theatrical, playing to an audience only he could see. Silas Crane, Victor Kane, Edmund Harper. So many names, so many lives. Do you know how freeing it is, Ranger? To diwa and be reborn, to shed one identity like a snake sheds skin? I know you're a killer. We're all killers. Kane's voice dropped. Intimate, sharing a secret between professionals. You killed in the war. Killed as a ranger. How many men have you put in the ground, Cole Hartley? 20, 50, more? The only difference between us is I don't pretend to feel guilty about it. He raised his hand, casual, lazy, gun appearing like magic. Colt Navy 36, professional's weapon. Accurate, reliable, deadly in the right hands. Now the papers, or I start with our Haitian. Gun aimed at Lily's head, finger tightening on trigger. Sarah screaming, Cole moving, time slowing down the way it does when death is measured in heartbeats. Cole drew. 0.8 seconds from rest to firing. Fast. One of the fastest draws in the West. Both men fired simultaneously. Thunder in the narrow alley. Smoke and flame and lead moving faster than thought. Cole's bullet took Kane in the right shoulder, spinning him, ruining his aim. Kane's bullet grazed Cole's side. Deep furrow. Burning pain. But Cole was already moving. Chaos erupted. Kane's men opened fire from positions. Muzzle flashes from rooftops. Doorways, windows. Bullets punching through wagon wood. Through the air where Cole had been standing. Through the space he had already vacated. Sarah grabbed Lily, dove behind the wagon. Cole rolled, came up behind a water barrel. Old tactics from 20 years of not dying. Find cover, assess threats, eliminate them methodically. First shooter, rooftop east. Cole's revolver barked. The man dropped. Clean chest shot. Professional, economical. Second shooter, doorway south. Another shot. Leg wound. Man fell screaming. Third shooter charging. Too brave. Too stupid. Too dead. Cole's bullet center mass. Reloading. 6 seconds. Hands moving on muscle memory while his brain tracked remaining threats. Sarah's shotgun roared. Another man down. She was shaking, sick, dying. But fighting anyway, fighting for her daughter, fighting for survival. Fourth shooter, window north. Cole fired, miss, adjusted, second shot, hit. The man disappeared, but too many. Still six standing, and Cole was down to 2 bullets. Kane appeared from behind cover, wounded but functional, reloading with his left hand. Professional adaptation, adjusting for injury, still deadly. He raised the gun, not at Cole, at Lily, at this 8-year-old child who'd witnessed his crimes, who'd testified with drawings, who'd refused to break. I should have killed you 18 months ago. Kane's voice was steady, final. This was execution. This was tying loose ends. This was eliminating witnesses. Sarah screamed. Dove tried to cover her daughter with her body, willing to take the bullet, willing to die so Lily could live another few seconds. But Cole was already moving, sprinting, exposing himself to crossfire. Bullets singing past. One caught his upper left chest, below the collarbone. Serious wound. Possible lung involvement. Pain exploded. Vision grayed. He went down hard. Blood spreading. Too much blood. Too fast. The kind of wound that killed in minutes. Kane stood over him, gun aimed at Cole's head. Professional courtesy. End it quick. No need to make the man suffer. You were good, Hartley. Better than I expected. But not good enough. His finger tightened on the trigger. Cole tried to move. Couldn't. Body not responding. Blood loss stealing strength. Stealing time. Stealing everything. Any last words? Cole coughed. Blood bubbled on his lips. Tasted copper. Tasted failure. Tasted the same thing he'd tasted 5 years ago when Catherine and Daniel died and he wasn't there to stop it. Yeah. Voice barely working. Lungs filling with blood. You talk too much. Kane laughed, genuinely amused. Fair point. He aimed, carefully, professional to the end. One shot, clean, quick, merciful in its way. A small voice cut through the moment. Mr. Kane. He turned, instinctive. Everyone turns when their name is called. It's human nature, it's reflex, it's fatal. Lily Morgan stood 12 feet away. Thomas Morgan's Derringer in her small hands. 41 caliber. 2 shots. The gun her father had taught her to shoot. The gun he'd hidden in his journal for emergencies. The gun that was about to change everything. Kane looked at the child, at the toy gun. Laughed. Child, that's a pea shooter. You'll miss at this range. The first shot took him center mass, heart region. 41 caliber might be small, but at 12 feet it was devastating. The second shot followed half a heartbeat later. Same placement, perfect double tap. Exactly as Thomas had taught his daughter. Exactly as she'd practiced in secret. Exactly as she dreamed it would happen. Kane staggered, looked down at the spreading red. Looked up at Lily with surprise, replacing the emptiness in his eyes. Human emotion showing finally. Shock, disbelief, understanding. How? One word. Question and accusation and admission of defeat. Lily's voice was trembling but clear. The voice of a child who'd just killed. The voice of a daughter who'd just avenged her father. The voice of a survivor who'd done what needed doing. Papa taught me. He said if the bad man ever came, I should shoot first and ask questions never. Kane opened his mouth. Blood came out instead of words. He fell forward. Didn't move again. Silas Crane. Victor Kane. Edmund Harper. All the names, all the identities, all the evil. Gone, finished. Dead. Lily dropped the gun, started shaking. Violent tremors that shook her entire small frame. The bravery cracking. The child underneath breaking through. The reality of what she'd done crashing down like Montana winter. I killed him. Mama, I killed someone. Sarah ran to her, cooped her up, held her tight while Lily sobbed. Not warrior tears, child tears. The kind that came from doing something terrible for the right reasons. The kind that would haunt her for years but that she'd done anyway, because that's what courage looked like. You saved us, baby. You saved us all. But Lily kept crying, kept saying it. I killed him. I killed him. I killed him. Like repetition could make it less true. Like words could undo actions. Like 8-year-olds were supposed to carry this weight and somehow stay children. Cole tried to speak, tried to tell Lily she was brave, tried to say what needed saying, but his lungs weren't working right. Blood filling spaces where air should be, vision going dark around the edges, cold spreading from his chest outward. Lily crawled to him, still sobbing, took his hand. Papa Cole, I'm scared. First time she'd called him that. Papa Cole, not Mr. Cole, not the stranger who'd saved her at the well. Papa. Family. The word he thought he'd never hear again after Daniel died. Me too. Words barely audible. Breathing harder now, each breath agony. But we're brave together. His eyes closed, darkness taking him, Lily screaming, Sarah screaming. But Cole was already gone. Floating, leaving, dying, boots on cobblestones. Thunder of many feet, voices shouting, professional, authoritative, help arriving too late. Marshal James Hawthorne and 20 federal deputies burst into the alley, drawn by gunfire, by chaos, by the smell of smoke and blood and justice finally being served. The scene told its story. Kane dead, 4 more bodies, Cole dying, Sarah and Lily covered in blood. Evidence scattered where the wagon had overturned in the crossfire. What in God's name happened here? Sarah looked up, still holding Lily, still holding Cole's hand, voice surprisingly steady for a woman watching another man die. We have evidence. Judge Marcus Blackwell, corruption, murder, arson, everything. She released Cole's hand, grabbed the blood-stained satchel, thrust it at the marshal. My husband, Thomas Morgan, gathered it before they killed him. This man, Cole Hartley, helped us bring it here, and now he's dying because we told the truth. Marshal Hawthorne opened the satchel. His weathered face went pale. 20 years as a federal marshal, and he'd never seen documentation this thorough, this damning, this perfect. Sweet Jesus, this is comprehensive. He looked up, looked at Sarah, at Lily, at Cole bleeding out on the cobblestones. We already have Blackwell in custody, caught him trying to flee during the fires. But this, he held the papers like they were holy relics. This will bury him. Good. Sarah's voice was flat, final, beyond caring about anything except the dying man. Now get Cole to a doctor. He needs help now. Deputies moved, lifted Cole carefully. He didn't respond. Unconscious. Breathing shallow. Pulse thready. Dying. There's medical staff at the courthouse. Move, now! They carried him away, Sarah and Lily following. Refusing to be separated, refusing to lose another man to violence and evil and the cost of doing what's right. Behind them, Kane's body cooled on the cobblestones. Above them, Helena still burned. Around them, chaos reigned. But in the midst of it all, justice had been served. Truth had survived. Evil had fallen. Now they just had to see if hope could survive too. Darkness, warm, peaceful. Cole floated in it like a river current. No pain here, no guilt, no weight of failure and loss, and 5 years of running from everything that mattered. Golden light ahead, soft, welcoming, familiar somehow. He drifted toward it without thinking, without choosing, just following what felt right. The light resolved into shapes. A field, summer, wild flowers, blue sky, everything Colorado had been before fever came, before death visited, before the world learned how to be cruel. Catherine stood in the flowers, exactly as he remembered. Summer dress, dark hair loose around her shoulders, smile that had made him believe in goodness. In futures, in love that lasted, Daniel beside her, 6 years old forever, running through flowers, laughing, the sound of pure joy, the sound Cole hadn't heard in 5 years, the sound he'd thought was lost forever. They saw him, ran to him, Catherine's arms around his neck, Daniel's small body pressed against his legs. Real, solid, here. Come home, Cole. Catherine's voice in his ear, gentle, loving, everything he'd lost. You've earned your rest. God, he wanted to. Wanted it more than breathing, more than living, more than anything. I'm so tired, Catherine. 5 years of hurt, 5 years of alone. I don't know how to keep going. She pulled back, cupped his face in her hands, looked at him with eyes that knew everything, forgave everything. I know, my love. I know. Daniel hugged his legs tighter. We miss you, Papa. It's nice here. You'll like it. Voices from far away, distant, desperate, pulling at him like hooks in his chest. Stay with me. Don't you dare leave us. Sarah, screaming, begging, refusing to let go. You promised, Papa Cole. You promised. Lily, crying, holding his hand, anchoring him to a world that hurt. Catherine smiled, sad, understanding, the kind of smile that said goodbye before words did. Not yet, my love. They need you more than I do. But I've been alone so long. You're not alone anymore. Her hands dropped from his face, stepped back, still smiling, still loving, still everything he'd lost. You found them for a reason, the way you found me once. Don't waste your second chance, Cole. Not everyone gets one. Daniel released his legs, stepped back beside his mother, waved, small hand, big gesture. Be happy, Papa. We'll be here when you're ready. I'm not ready to leave you. We know. Catherine's voice was fading now, the field fading, the golden light dimming. But they need you to stay. Go back, Cole. Go back and live. For all of us. The darkness returned, cold this time, painful, dragging him down, away from light, away from peace, away from the family he'd failed, but toward another family, one that needed him, one that was still alive, still fighting, still hoping he'd come back. Pain exploded, fire in his chest, lungs burning, ribs screaming. Everything hurt, everything was terrible. Everything meant he was alive. Voices cleared, close now, real. He's breathing, he's back. Hands on him, checking pulse, checking wounds, doing medicine things, eyes opened, blurred, focusing slowly. Sarah's face, Lily's face, both crying, both smiling, relief and fear mixed together. You came back. Lily's voice, small, hopeful, holding his hand like she could keep him here through force of will. Promised. One word, all he could manage. Lungs not working right yet, but enough. Enough to let them know he meant it. Enough to say he chose them. Chose life. Chose staying. 3 days later, Cole woke in a real bed. Courthouse had been converted to emergency hospital. Helena's fires mostly out. City damaged but surviving, like everything else. Doctor stood over him, 60 years old, seen everything, impressed by nothing. Until now. Bullet missed your heart by 2 inches, nicked the lung, lost enough blood to kill most men twice. You're damn lucky. Don't feel lucky. Voice rough, throat raw, but working, alive. Sarah appeared beside the bed, dark circles under her eyes. Hadn't slept, hadn't left, just sat and waited and refused to lose another man. You scared us. Sorry. Don't be sorry, just don't do it again. Lily on the other side, holding his hand, hadn't let go since they carried him in. 8 years old and already understanding that love meant holding on. You kept your promise. Always do. 3 words, but they meant everything. Meant he was staying, meant he was theirs, meant family. Marshal Hawthorne visited that afternoon, brought news, brought hope, brought the future. Trial starts in 3 days, biggest corruption case in territorial history. Need you and Mrs. Morgan to testify. Can barely sit up. Testify from wheelchair if you have to. This matters. Cole understood. This wasn't about him, about his pain, about his convenience. This was about Thomas Morgan's sacrifice, Ben Morgan's sacrifice. About 14 families who'd lost everything. About justice that had waited 18 months. I'll be there. Sarah found a letter in Thomas's coat pocket. Been in the evidence satchel the whole time. Overlooked in chaos. She read it aloud. Voice breaking. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this and I'm on, know that I prepared for this. I've sent complete copies of all evidence to 47 newspapers across America. New York Times, Chicago Tribune, San Francisco Chronicle, every major paper. Also to federal marshals in 12 cities, When instructions are clear, if Thomas Morgan dies under suspicious circumstances, open immediately and publish. Blackwell can destroy 1 copy, 10 copies, even 20, but he can't destroy them all. The truth cannot be buried if everyone knows it. Protect Lily. Tell her Papa loves her. Tell her I'll always be watching over her. Tell her to be brave. Thomas. Silence after she finished. Understanding settling over them like snow. Thomas had known, had planned, had made sure even death wouldn't silence truth, had thought 5 moves ahead, had won from beyond the grave. Papa was always 5 moves ahead. Lily's voice. Proud, sad, missing her father but understanding his brilliance. Like chess. 3 days later, the territorial courthouse was packed. Every seat filled, people standing in aisles, press from across the nation. This was news. This was scandal. This was justice finally being served. Judge William Harrison presiding. 65. Seen everything. Shocked by nothing until this case. The charges were read. 14 counts of murder first degree. Conspiracy to commit murder. Arson, fraud, theft, corruption. Enough to hang Blackwell 10 times over. Marcus Blackwell sat at the defense table. No longer pleasant, no longer smiling, face hard, eyes empty. Seeing his empire crumble, seeing the end approaching, accepting nothing. Witnesses testified, one after another. Farmers who'd lost everything. Widows whose husbands had died mysteriously. Businessmen who'd been extorted. Bank clerks who'd been threatened. Each telling their story. Each adding weight to the scales of justice. The evidence was presented. Thomas Morgan's ledgers, every bribe documented, every payment recorded, every crime cataloged with a lawyer's precision, letters in Blackwell's own handwriting, photographs showing his association with Cain, forged deeds, expert testimony confirming forgery. It was overwhelming, comprehensive, perfect. Then Sarah took the stand. She was sworn in, sat with her back straight, consumption eating her, but dignity keeping her strong. The prosecutor asked her to describe Thomas. My husband was a lawyer, a father, the best man I ever knew. He believed that good men must stand against evil. That silence in the face of wrong was itself wrong. That justice mattered more than safety. Her voice grew stronger. He found proof that Judge Blackwell stole 14 farms through fraud and murder. He documented everything, built a case that would stand up in any court, and they killed him for it. The courtroom was silent, reporters writing furiously. Jury riveted. My 8-year-old daughter watched her father die. Watched this man's hired killer push Thomas into a well. For 18 months, she carried that truth alone because no one believed a child, because people were too scared, too comfortable, too willing to look away. Sarah turned, looked directly at Blackwell. Thomas died trying to expose you, but he succeeded. His evidence is in 47 newspapers across America. His truth is known from New York to California. His legacy is justice. Her voice rang out, clear, strong, final. My husband is gone, but his truth lives on, and so do we. The courtroom erupted, people standing, applauding, Judge Harrison gaveling for order. Sarah returned to her seat. Lily hugged her. Cole, in a wheelchair beside them, took her hand, squeezed. Cole's testimony was brief. Identified Cain's body as Silas Crane. Confirmed the evidence was authentic. Spoke as a professional who had spent 20 years in law enforcement. Who knew what real evidence looked like. Who couldn't be shaken by defense attorneys desperate to find any weakness. The defense tried. Claimed evidence was fabricated. Expert witnesses destroyed the claim. Tried character assassination on Thomas. The community rose up in defense of a dead man. Tried to suggest Sarah and Cole had conspired. The timeline made it impossible. There was no defense, no credible explanation, no way to explain away documentation this thorough, this damning, this perfect. The jury deliberated 90 minutes, returned with a verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant, Marcus Blackwell, guilty on all counts. The courtroom exploded, cheering, crying, release of 18 months of fear and anger and frustrated justice. Sarah collapsed into Cole's arms, his wheelchair, his broken body, but his arms still worked, still held her, still kept her from falling. Lily stood, watching Blackwell being led away in chains. This man who'd destroyed her family, who'd killed her father, who'd tried to kill them all. Justice served, evil punished, truth victorious. Judge Harrison sentenced him to death by hanging. Gavel fell. It was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Questions shouted. Sarah answered calmly, told them about Thomas's preparation, about the 47 newspapers, about how a dead man's foresight had ensured truth survived. One reporter asked about Cole, about the stranger who'd helped. Sarah looked at him, at this broken man who'd run through snow to save a child, who'd stood when everyone else walked away, who'd become family. Cole Hartley saved my daughter's life, saved mine, helped bring my husband's killer to justice. He's not a stranger. He's family. Simple words, but they meant everything. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like wolves scenting blood. Questions shouted from every direction. The nation watching as Montana's corruption finally fell, and justice, delayed but not denied, prevailed at last. Sarah stood on the courthouse steps, Lily beside her by her small hand gripping her mother's skirt, Cole in his wheelchair, Marshall Hawthorne keeping the crowd at respectful distance. One reporter pushed forward, young man from the New York Times, notepad ready and hungry for the story that would make his career. "Mrs. Morgan, how does it feel knowing your husband's sacrifice brought down Judge Blackwell?" Sarah looked at the satchel still clutched in her hands, Thomas's handwriting visible on exposed papers. 18 months of carrying this weight alone. 18 months of hoping someone would listen, someone would care, someone would believe what an 8-year-old child had witnessed. "My husband knew they would kill him." Her voice carried across the courthouse steps. Strong, clear, the voice of a woman who'd walked through hell holding her daughter's hand and refused to break. But he also knew the truth was bigger than one man's life. He made sure it would survive, even if he didn't. Thomas sent complete evidence to 47 newspapers before he died, to federal marshals in 12 cities. He made it impossible for corruption to win. She paused. Let that sink in. Let the reporters understand what Thomas had done. That was his legacy. That was his gift to Montana, to America, to our daughter. Another reporter, older, from Chicago. "And this man, Cole Hartley, we understand he helped you reach Helena?" Sarah looked down at Cole, at this broken man who'd run through snow to save a stranger's child, who'd stood when everyone else walked away, who'd taken bullets protecting her family, who'd nearly died in this alley 3 days ago. "Cole Hartley saved my daughter's life, saved mine, brought my husband's killer to justice." She put her hand on his shoulder, squeezed, felt the strength still there despite wounds that should have killed him. "He's not a stranger anymore. He's family." Simple words, but Cole felt them settle into his chest, into the hollow places where Catherine and Daniel used to live. Not replacing them, never that, but filling emptiness with something new, something worth holding on to, something worth living for. The weeks after the trial blurred together in fever and pain, and the slow crawl back toward life. Cole's recovery was brutal. The lung wound had been serious. Infection set in on day 4. Fever that made him delirious, calling out for Catherine, for Daniel, mixing past and present until he didn't know which family he was losing. Sarah sat beside his bed every night, refused to leave. Was to let death take another man she cared about. Lily visited every day, brought drawings, new ones, not prophetic anymore. Just a child's sketches of horses and kittens in a family that might be. She'd sit beside the bed, hold his hand, talk about nothing and everything. About the farm they'd rebuild, about the horses they'd buy, about futures that seemed impossible, but that she believed in anyway with the fierce certainty of someone who'd already survived the unsurvivable. "You're going to get better, Papa Cole." Not a question, a statement, said with the same certainty she'd had when she'd told him he'd marry her mother. Prophetic dreams didn't lie. "You promised you'd teach me to track and ride and be brave when it's hard. You can't do that if you're dead." Cole laughed, winced at the pain it caused in his healing lung, but laughed anyway. No, I suppose I can't. So you have to get better. Promise me. I promise. And slowly, impossibly, he kept that promise. The lung healed. The infection cleared. Strength returned in small increments measured not in miles but in steps. Sitting up without help one day. Standing the next. Walking to the window the day after. Each milestone celebrated like a victory because that's what they were. Small wins against death. Small declarations that life would continue despite everything. Sarah healed too. The consumption that had been killing her for months began its own impossible retreat. Montana air, rest, proper food purchased with Crane's reward money. Hope that maybe tomorrow wouldn't be worse than today. All working together to do what medicine couldn't. Color returned to her cheeks first, then weight to her frame, then light to her eyes. The cough that had rattled her ribs for months faded to occasional morning clearing. The fever that had burned through her broke and didn't return. The doctor says I might actually live. She said it one evening in early spring. 3 months after the trial, surprise in her voice, like she'd spent so long accepting death that living required relearning. That was always the plan. Cole's voice was dry, matter of fact, like survival had never been in question even though they'd both known it was. Was it? You're too stubborn to die, Sarah Morgan. Your husband knew it, your daughter knows it, and I'm learning it. She smiled then, real smile, not the sad ghost of one she'd worn for 18 months. Actual joy breaking through grief like spring through Montana snow. Breaking through and staying. 3 months after the trial, on a morning when the last snow had melted and the first green showed in the fields, Cole asked her to walk with him. Early morning, farm chores done. Lily with Marshall Hawthorne in town picking up supplies. Just the two of them in Montana sunrise and words that needed saying before courage failed. They walked slowly, Cole still using the cane, limp permanent now, reminder of bullets taken for people who mattered. Sarah matching his pace. Comfortable silence between people who'd seen each other at their worst and stayed anyway. Who'd held each other up when standing felt impossible. He stopped at the well, the place where everything had started, where Thomas had died clawing at stone while water filled his lungs, where they'd found evidence that changed everything, where death had tried to win and been defeated by a dead man's foresight. I've been thinking. Cole's voice was rough, nervous in a way he hadn't been facing Kane's guns. Easier to face death than hope, easier to run than stay. About staying, about futures, about whether a broken-down ex-ranger with nightmares and a permanent limp has any right to ask a woman like you for anything. Sarah turned, looked at him, at this man who'd become a Kitchell without either of them noticing, who'd filled spaces she'd thought would stay empty forever. What are you asking, Cole? He reached into his pocket, pulled out a simple gold band. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just honest metal that would last, the kind of promise that didn't need decoration. Asking if you'd consider marrying a man who took 5 years to stop running, who still wakes up screaming sometimes, who'll never be whole again, who doesn't have much to offer except stubbornness and a promise to never leave. Sarah's hand covered her mouth, tears immediate, but smiling too. Laughing and crying mixed together in the way that happens when grief and joy occupy the same moment. Yes. One word, but it changed everything. Yes? Yes, you fool. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, Lily will be thrilled. Yes, we'll rebuild this farm together. Yes to all of it. Yes. She kissed him then, right there by the well where her first husband had died, where her second chance at happiness had begun, where death and life and justice and love tangled together into something too complicated for words but simple in the way that mattered most. They married in April when the world was green again and Montana remembered how to be beautiful. Small ceremony, just family and friends, the few people from Cedar Falls who'd found their conscience too late but were trying, who'd shown up with lumber and nails and shamefaced apologies, who'd helped rebuild what they'd let fall apart through indifference. Marshall Hawthorne gave Sarah away, this federal lawman who'd become unlikely family through shared battle. Lily was flower girl, wore a dress bought with reward money from Crane's capture. $5,000 split between Cole and the Morgans. Blood money transformed into something better, into wedding dresses and lumber and horses and futures. The Reverend spoke about second chances, about how God worked in mysterious ways, about how sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes. Cole barely heard it, too focused on Sarah's face, on the way she looked at him, like he was worth something, like he was home. I do, Sarah's voice clear, certain, choosing him, choosing them, choosing life when death had seemed so much easier. I do. Cole's voice rough, emotional, meaning it more than he'd ever meant anything, making a promise he'd keep this time, making a vow to stay when running had always been simpler. Marshall Hawthorne hosted the reception at his house, food and music and people celebrating love born from tragedy. Lily danced with other children, laughed with a sound Cole hadn't heard from her before. Real child laughter, not forced, not pretend, just joy reclaiming territory grief had occupied too long. That night in the farmhouse they'd begun rebuilding together, Cole and Sarah lay awake in darkness, both too aware of what came next, both nervous in ways that felt young and old simultaneously. We're going to need a bigger house, Sarah said it quietly, hand on her stomach, feeling what Cole hadn't yet guessed, what she'd suspected for weeks but hadn't wanted to believe until the doctor confirmed it that morning. She took his hand, placed it where hers had been. Let him feel what was there, what was growing, what was impossible. Because there's going to be 4 of us, maybe 5. The doctor thinks twins. Cole froze, hand pressed to her stomach where new life formed, the kind he thought had died with Catherine and Daniel. The kind that said futures were real, that second chances existed, that broken things could still create beauty. Twins? His voice barely worked, choked on hope and fear mixed together. Maybe. Too early to tell for sure, but he thinks so. He pulled her close, held her in darkness, not saying anything because words weren't big enough for this moment, for this gift, for this proof that love survived death and hope survived despair, and families could be rebuilt from ruins. Now 6 months after the trial, late summer had settled over Montana with the weight of ripening grain. The farm transformation was complete. Everything Thomas and Sarah had built, everything that had fallen into disrepair during her illness and isolation, had been rebuilt. Fences stood straight with new rails. The barn door hung true on new hinges. The roof no longer sagged under snow load. Fields stretched green and gold with wheat that would harvest well. But more than physical rebuilding, the farm felt alive again. Felt like a place where people lived instead of merely survived. Cole stood on the new porch he'd built over 6 careful weeks that spring, each board measured twice, each nail driven true. The rail beneath his hand was smooth pine, sanded until no splinter remained because soon there'd be twins crawling here, learning to walk here, growing up here. This had to be safe, had to be solid, had to last. His shirt was off despite August heat, scars visible in afternoon sun. The bullet wound from Cain puckered in pink still. Older scars from the war, from 20 years of violence, from a life lived hard, but alive. Still here, still working, still building instead of destroying. He was putting the final touches on the porch rail when Sarah emerged from the house. She moved slowly, carefully. The careful waddle of late pregnancy. 5 months along with twins meant she looked ready to deliver tomorrow. Her belly preceded her through the doorway, impossible to miss, impossible to ignore. She caught him watching and smiled, self-conscious in a way that made her look young. I'm enormous. You're beautiful. He meant it. This woman who'd faced him with a shotgun that December mornings is carrying his children, was choosing him every day, was building a life from ashes and refusing to let the past define the future. She handed him lemonade, homemade, sweet, the kind of normal domestic gesture that still surprised him, that still made him wonder if this was real, if he'd actually found this, if he deserved any of it. You're going to burn, come inside. 5 more minutes, want to finish this rail. 5 minutes, then inside. Doctor said you still need to be careful with that lung. Yes, Mrs. Hartley. He said it deliberately, watching her face, the way she smiled every time she heard her new name. still getting used to it, still amazed she'd chosen it, chosen him. His free hand found her stomach, felt movement, strong kicks from babies who were already fighters, already stubborn, already demanding attention. His palms spread wide, covering as much of her belly as possible, feeling life move beneath skin. How are they? Restless, like their father. I'm not their father yet. Close enough. She leaned into him, comfortable, easy, the kind of intimacy that came from survival, from seeing each other broken and choosing to stay anyway, from building something new without forgetting what had been lost. Lily's voice rang out from the yard. Mama, Papa Cole, come see. They turned, watched her running toward them. 8 years old still, but different now. Taller, stronger, healing in ways that showed. Still carrying what happened, but learning it didn't have to carry her. 6 kittens followed her in tumbling chaos, playing, alive, proof that life continued. The barn cat had given birth 2 months ago, and Lily had named them all with the fierce devotion of someone who'd lost too much. Thomas, Ben, Catherine, Daniel, Hope, Justice. Names that honored the dead and celebrated the living in equal measure. The gray one, Catherine, she caught a mouse all by herself, a real mouse. Lily's excitement was pure, childish, the kind that said trauma was losing its grip, that joy was reclaiming territory, that maybe, impossibly, she'd be okay. Cole scooped her up, spun her once, careful of his healing ribs. Heard her laugh, the sound that made everything worth it, that justified every choice, every sacrifice, every moment of pain. That's my girl. Knew she was a hunter. He set her down, watched her run back to the kittens, to her small kingdom of rescued things learning to thrive. She's healing. Sarah's voice was soft, wondering, like she'd hoped but hadn't quite believed it possible. We all are. Evening came slowly, Montana sunset painting the sky in colors that had no names. They sat on the porch together, the swing Cole had built last month creaking gently, Lily between them. Sarah's head on Cole's shoulder, his arm around both of them. Family. The word still felt new, still felt impossible, still felt absolutely right. Papa Cole? Yeah, little miss. Do you still think about them? Catherine and Daniel? The question didn't hurt anymore, not the way it used to. Time and love and choosing to live had smoothed the sharpest edges into something bearable. Every day, he was honest, always honest with Lily. She'd seen too much dishonesty, deserved better. But it doesn't hurt like it used to. I think they'd be happy that I found you and your mama, that I stopped running, that I'm living again instead of just surviving. Mama says they sent you to us. Sarah stirred, half asleep already, pregnancy exhausting her, but she smiled, confirmed it without words. Maybe they did. Cole looked up at the stars appearing one by one. Catherine and Daniel up there somewhere. Thomas and Ben, all the people who'd been lost but weren't really gone. Just transformed, just continuing differently, just loving from different places. Maybe they all did. Maybe that's how it works. The ones who loved us making sure we find each other, making sure we're not alone, making sure their love keeps going even after they're gone. Lily yawned, fighting sleep, not wanting this perfect day to end, not wanting to let go of this moment where everything felt safe. When the babies come, can I teach them to draw? Like Papa taught me? Yes, sweetheart. Sarah's voice was drowsy, content, happy in ways she'd forgotten were possible. You can teach drawing, and Papa Cole will teach tracking, and writing, and how to be brute when you're scared. That too, Lily's eyes closed, sleep winning finally, body going limp against Cole's side. Small, trusting, safe, everything a child should be. Cole and Sarah sat in comfortable silence, listening to Lily's breathing even out, feeling the baby's kick, watching stars wheel overhead in ancient patterns that had witnessed everything, that would witness everything still to come. Cole? Yeah, I love you. 3 words, simple, true, the kind that changed everything. I love you too. He'd thought he'd never say those words again, thought Catherine and Daniel had taken them with them. But love wasn't finite, wasn't limited. You didn't run out just because you'd given it before. Love multiplied, expanded, made room for everyone who needed holding. Sarah smiled against his shoulder, hand on her belly, on the futures growing there, on proof that life continued, that hope survived, that love was stronger than death. Around them, the farm breathed its evening rhythm. Horses in the pasture settling for night, kittens in the barn finding their mother, wheat in the fields waiting for harvest. Everything Thomas had planted now growing, everything he'd fought for now real, everything he'd died for now bearing fruit. The well stood silent in the yard, no longer a place of horror, just stone and water, a marker of where death had tried to win and been defeated, where truth had been buried and exhumed, where justice had waited patient in darkness until light found it. Cole Hartley had run for 5 years, run from grief, from responsibility, from everything that made life worth living. Then he'd stopped, stood, fought, chosen family over isolation, chosen hope over despair, chosen living over merely surviving. And now, holding Sarah's hand, listening to Lily's breathing, feeling twins kick against his palm, Cole finally understood what second chances meant. Not forgetting the first chance, not replacing what was lost, but honoring the dead by living fully, by loving completely, by building something worth the cost they'd paid. Catherine and Daniel hadn't died so he could waste 5 years running. Thomas and Ben hadn't sacrificed so this family could merely survive. They died so others could live, really live, fully and completely and without apology. Above them, stars watched. Below them, earth held. Around them, family breathed. And in the space between past and future, three people who'd survived the unsurvivable sat together and believed in all the tomorrows yet to come. Morning would bring work, challenges, the ordinary struggles of building life from ruins. But tonight there was only peace, only love, only the quiet certainty that they'd found what they needed most, each other. And that was enough. That was everything. When the snow fell silent and a child fell and a stranger ran to help, none of them knew it was the beginning of justice, the beginning of family, the beginning of healing. But it was. And sitting on this porch under Montana stars with his family whole and safe around him, Cole Hartley finally understood what it meant to come home, not to a place, to people, to love, to life, the end.